Welcome everybody. Play that.
Qué lindo.
Oh man, no.
Oh,
Couldn't leave it open in Flash though.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. What we're gonna do today is David's gonna start with a little bit of the basics of Flash. Everything from the tools to the tweening and animations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll go into more of the specifics of what we do with Dell banners and examples and I'll show a demonstration of resizing and stuff like that.
All right.
So go ahead.
Good deal. All right, guys. So, all right, great.
Nice.
All right, that's awesome. So, anyways, let's go back to our SWF. I'm gonna go a little over the interface, toolbars, the properties, library, timeline, stage area, all these little things, and we're gonna go over how I did this little animation. Not every single thing, 'cause I can't give all my tricks and tips away.
Oh, come on.
But well, okay, this is what Flash looks like when you open it. Here on your left, you have your toolbar, and this main area here is called your stage. And then you have your properties page, library, and then down here, this is called our timeline. And this is where all the magic happens.
Try to open it from there.
True. You gotta open the file. Great.
Flash was running yesterday.
I don't know, it's not opening though. That's weird. Well, anyways,
You want to open one of the ones I have?
that's fine. I'll just start from scratch. It's all good. But Flash is bugging out over here, man. Like the timeline's not. I'll open a new one. Great, just what I needed. All right, getting back to it. Okay, so this is our down here we have our timeline, and then we work in layers like most of Adobe's or the softwares. So that's one thing to keep in mind when working. Here in our properties palette, we have our publish settings, and this is our Flash player. And then here we have standard Flash player 10, action script 2.0, and all that can be edited here in our edit tab. So we can change our Flash player to whatever we need, cater to our client's needs or whatever it might be. You can change our action script, so on and so forth. And
What is action script?
action script is coding. It's kind of like what Jess does, but this is for, yeah. Thank you, Jess. Programming language. So, all right. And then here we have, under the properties, we have our FPS, which means frames per second. And this can vary anywhere from 15 to 30. 30 is more what we see on TV. That speed. And web usually, can vary from 15 to 25 or, just really depends. And then here we have our size, our file size, which is this white box. And everything else around it is the stage. And this light gray area here, that will not show in your final exported file. So just keep in mind when creating and working in Flash that this is your area, and it can be edited, of course, to whatever you might need. If you're doing a web page, you might want to consider 1024 by 768 pixels. 800 by 600 was the standard before. So just these little things. And
What's the default frame rate that you guys use for the banner?
well, what we use for the banners for Brazil, we use 18. So that's what we've been using. And I mean, it works fine.
What do you mean 18?
18 frames per second, yeah. You see all these little frames here on the bottom? If you run 18, that's 1 second.
Gotcha.
So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're working in timeline with
And
animations.
That's because the publishers,
Specify.
specify that. But for CCS Mets, it's 24 frames per second. And that's because there's one publisher that requires that and the others don't. So then just to have everybody the same.
Just keep it standard, it's
Obviously,
easy
the
to
more
work.
frames, the larger the file.
No, it's smoother.
Yeah, the animation is smoother.
Okay.
Gotcha.
As far as file size, it's almost like unnoticeable. It's like really small. You're talking about like bytes. That's about
Because
it.
we do 15 seconds anyway, so you just have to move around the
Yeah.
frames.
Exactly. And then, well, here you can, inside your properties palette, you can change your stage color. So there's another thing just to, it's good to know. So I like to keep it in white. That's pretty cool. And then, all right, let's talk about, I'm going to go over the toolbars while we work. I think it's a little bit easier that way. And just so you guys can get a feel of the workflow, more or less. So first of all, I'm just going to show you guys what a tween is. And basically, a tween just means in between. Literally, it means in between. So let's say I want to work with a box or whatever it might be. So you grab your box, and then you want to create an animation. All right? So let's say since we have 24 frames per second, I'm going to go here on frame 24, right-click, insert a keyframe. So this is pretty much, you're going from point A to point B. And when we're talking about a motion tween or a classic tween, which is just movement, and I'll go over that after I show you guys this example, what really is a motion tween and a classic tween and how they differ. But they pretty much do the same thing, which is movement. So what you got to do is you got to define your point A, define your point B where you want it to end. So let's say across the stage. And then in between, which is your tween, literally, which is this space right here, that's where we create our motion tween, shape tween, or classic tween. I'm going to do a classic tween so you guys can get the gist of it. And what Flash does is you just tell it where you want, your A and B, start and ending, and it works out the rest for you. It does everything else. And then if you hit enter, your timeline, it'll show you the animation. And that's animation like 101, like literally. And then from here you can, add what, like variations. You can have it curved, you can have it, move around, change color. And then that's fairly easy to change color. We have it in blue. You just go to your end frame, you click on your object, and you have like color effects or whatever. And you can even go to, sorry, not advanced, but tint. You can tint it however you want it, lighter, whatever, aqua, green. And then when you stream again, it'll show that transition. So there's just so many like little things that you can do with these animations. And one of my personal favorites, which I really like. Oh, okay. What I did was I just selected everything and I right-clicked and said remove frames. It's a good way to just clear your stuff. You just select everything and that's it. Well, anyways, a classic tween. We just went over that. And how it differs from motion tween, although they do the same thing, is that motion tween you have a lot more control, and it's brand new in CS5. And pretty much what you do is you don't have to do what I just did where you create your first and your last frame. You just create your first frame, you literally just drag your object, and it creates everything else for you. So it kind of like eliminated a step, which is kind of nice. And you have a your motion editor tab for that, for your motion tween. So that's a little bit more, advanced. It has a lot more control. It's almost like After Effects, which is another software, which is for video editing, special effects, and whatever. So that's just something good to know. We keep it simple with Classic Tween right now. So I mean, we still have all the control we need, which is fairly nice. But we want to get more and more involved in motion tween, which looks smoother. It's a whole lot nicer, and it's just a matter of catering it to our clients. So now let me go over shape tween, which is really cool, which you can change one shape to another, square to a circle, vice versa, or whatever shape you need. The only thing about that is you got to keep in mind you need to break apart. Breaking apart means you have a vector, a bitmap, or whatever, you break it apart inside Flash. That way Flash can grab every single pixel and transform that from object A to object B. And you can do that with type. A type, when you type it in Flash, it's a vector. When you break it apart, it turns it into an image. So you have all your little pixels. So I'll give you guys an example. So again, here on your toolbar, you have everything you need. You have all your arrows, your transformation tool, your 3D rotation tool. If you have like a 3D object or whatever, you have your lasso tool for selections, pen tool, type. You have your lines, your objects. If you click and hold, you have some pretty standard objects here: oval, primitive, whatever, polystar. You have your pencil. You have brushes to paint buckets, erasers, hand tools, magnifying glasses. It's pretty much really standard from what we see already. in Photoshop Illustrator. So it's not like it's a beast, really. So let's go over the shape tween. Well, actually, so I have to create a blank keyframe. Right click on your timeline, and then you have all these things that you can work with. So you create a blank keyframe, you draw your object, and you see how you get all these little dots? That's because it's broken apart already, because I'm creating this object inside Flash. So that's the look you want when you're doing a shape tween. And then you go to your end frame, you right click, you insert a blank keyframe, and then here, that's where you create your other object, where you want the one that you want it to morph into, or whatever you want to call it. And then again, in between A and B, start and end, that's where you right click and you create your shape tween. So it does everything else for you. And how do you know this is a shape tween? Is because you have this green shade in the back. If it's a regular classic or motion tween, it will give you like a bluish, purplish shade.
That frame doesn't have to be in tween?
No, it's just literally in between. That's what it means. It's in between your keyframes, which your keyframes are represented by these black circles. So you go to your first frame, you hit enter just to stream through your timeline, and there you have it.
Wow.
That's a shape tween. And literally you can, the one I did here for this, the shape tween happens when the circle transforms into the logo. That's a shape tween. This I got from the web, the logo, and what I did was I brought it in and it came in as a bitmap. All I had to do was break it apart, and I'll show you guys how to do that, which is fairly simple. So it literally just morphs it for you, does all the work for you. You just got to know what tools to use. Flash, I think after like at least the basic like tools and controls, you can do like so many different things to it. And like in this example here, Flash is very 2D. Just adding just making the circle smaller, turning it into big, and having a little shadow, it gives it so much depth. And just like these little things is just amazing. The things you can do with Flash. So all right. Anyways,
That's cool.
so let's go back. You select what you don't need, right click, remove frames. So going back to the example of what I did with the circle in the welcome screen, where it was small and it came in just like it grew on you, whatever, and it rolled out of the screen. So pretty much what I did was, and what I like to do, and what is pretty much good practice in Flash, is every object you want to animate, you want to turn it into a movie clip. Okay, why do we do that? Why do we turn it into a movie clip? First, because movie clips, it's reusable pieces of animation, which means if you have a movie clip and you want to edit that, you edit it once and it edits everything else for you. So let's say I have it in blue and I change my mind at the end. I just go to that movie clip and I change that object to green or red or whatever. It changes throughout my entire animation. So, I'm sorry?
Style sheet, amazing.
Exactly. So that's pretty much good practice in Flash, and that's awesome. Saves a ton of time. So that's just one of the little things to keep in mind. And so let's name this circle. And what I like to do, I like to name it Circle MC, so I know it's a movie clip. Well, that's just me, anyways. And that goes here into your library, which is your circle. And actually, these tweens we don't need. I'll explain that in a little bit. So here we have our object, and that's a movie clip. You go on our properties palette. This is the little symbol for a movie clip. And here you can name it. If you're using an action script per se, this is where you would name all your movie clips. And that's for class 2. If you guys vote for it. If you call 1-800-CALL-DAVID, we'll have Flash class 2. Please vote now. Our lines are open. I know that's going to be edited out anyways.
Nothing's edited.
Oh, yeah? I love it. I'm so screwed. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so inside movie clip, in our properties palette, here we have position and size, where you can literally just edit how you want it. Let's say like 50 by 50. You want it smaller, let's say. Or you can just go into your stage, you click on it. I like using shortcuts, which are on the handout, so please read when you guys have a chance. You press Q that you transform to, or you can go to your toolbar here on the left, and it's the third object, and it actually has a shortcut right there for you in parentheses, letter Q. So that's where you can just go and drag and transform and do whatever you want with it, which I think is a little bit, the way I see it is a little bit more organic workflow, where you're actually seeing what you're doing instead of just typing in numbers. But it does help to type in if you need to, move a couple of things around here and there. So here you have, your 3D position in view, your color effects, brightness 10, advanced alpha, which goes from transparent to full on 100%. And and then here we have our displays. Like in Photoshop, again, we have all our layers. You can multiply it, light and screen, so on and so forth. That's not new to you guys. And then what I like here is we have our filters. And then if you go down here on the bottom, you have all these little icons. And the first one, that's where you add your filter, and you have all these little effects. Gradient bevel, gradient glow, bevel. The ones we use a lot is our drop shadow and blur. When you're using blur, you guys got to think about in animation and in real life, a lot of things that are moving fast, they're blurry. So that's one thing you guys need to keep in mind when animating. So it's just to add that value to your project. You add animation value, which are, you want to make it look real as much as possible and smooth, and these things help you. All these little things are here to help you guys. So and it's good to know, just this little thing right here, blur, will make a difference in your project. It's not even funny how good it can be. Okay, so going back to making the circle jump out like we had on our welcome screen. So let's make it small, like we had it. That's our first frame, and you want it to jump out and make it bigger. So you go to your last frame, let's say frame 20, you right click, insert keyframe, and then it says a keyframe for you, and it adds you that space. So you right click, you create your classic tween, and that's the shade that I was telling you about. That's either your motion or your classic tween, your movement. That's how you know. So here, nothing's happening because I didn't tell it what to do. I just gave it keyframes. So if I go to my last keyframe and I want it big, I'm going to make it big. And Flash does the rest for you. It makes your object big. There you go. All you do is just hit enter, runs through your timeline, and there you have it. Now if you want to add movement to it, you already have it big, you already have it growing, you can move it to the side. Again, I'm in my last keyframe, and let's say you move it, it's going to look like it's moving. It's growing bigger, and it's, just adding these little things to your animation, and then you just start adding, like let's say turns or whatever, and then you can do a shade tune like we did before, and then you add blurs and shadows. There you have it. You have a pretty decent Flash project. You just got to start adding these little things, and you got to know what you want to do. So that's why when we're working, Franco and I and the rest of the interactive crew, that's why we have storyboards, so we know where we're going with the animation. So let's say we want the letters to fall in, and then from there we have the circle that jumps out and rolls off the stage and comes back in and drops everything. So you got to know you got to know how to prepare all your assets so you can work through that animation. So these are just little things for us to do. Okay, what else can we go over? Shape, motion, classic. Talked about movie clips, timelines. Okay, let's do another little exercise here. So this is, I'm sorry?
Do one that bounces.
Doing that bounces. All right, so doing the little bounce is just literally adding keyframes in between your first and last frame, and that just gives it more realism. So when you think about it, a circle, when it bounces, not a circle, like a ball or whatever you have, and when you throw it on the ground, what happens? And once it hits the ground, all that kinetic energy that it had, it's going to flatten because it's a rubber ball or whatever it is. So it gives out with in contact with the surface. So there's it shrinks or whatever. I don't know what it's called. Anyway.
Stretch.
I'm sorry?
Squash and stretch.
There you go, squash and stretch. It's 9:30 in the morning, guys. Come on, give me a break. Anyway, so that's what I squashes and stretches. So you got to keep that in mind when animating as well. So we have our ball. Let's actually let's pull out our our rulers, and I really don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. I just used the shortcut. So I like to use the rulers for guides. So here's the edge of our stage, and let's just create that so I know where it is. So let's go to our first frame. Say we're gonna have the ball drop from right here, and I want the ball to end at the corner of the stage of our stage area. Let's make it just about the same size in the beginning. So if we do that, it's just falling straight. So to add realism to this and make it look like a real bouncing ball, I want to add more keyframes because I want to have more time for it to run through, because you want it to look real. You don't want a ball to just run like really fast. You know, you want it to bounce around and roll, let's say. So,
Are you okay?
I'm a little nervous, man.
Stage fright.
No, I'm a little nervous. Everybody's looking at me. I'm like, God damn. Anyways. Woo.
Don't mind my camera back here.
I know, man. Mikey, you're making me nervous, bro. All right. No, because I want to make sure I go over everything, you know? And I'm just like, all right. And Jess is giving me that L'Oreal look, and I'm like, come on. And she's leaving. Unbelievable. All right, anyways. So we have our starting point, and we want it to hit the ground. So let's say we have 50 frames to work with. You're going to kind of have to guess and work through the look and like the feel of the animation. So you're going to have to move around keyframes here and there. Or not really, quite often you're going to have to do that. So let's say frame 15, you want to add a keyframe. So you just right click on that frame and you hit insert keyframe. So that keyframe right there, you have total control with it. So let's say, and it's in the middle of the animation, in the middle of our tween. So let's say I move it this way, it's going to go from our starting point to where we define that keyframe on frame 15, and then it's going to go all the way to our last one. No matter what you do, it's always going to start and end where you have it. And then in between, you can add whatever you want, and it'll still end the same place, no matter what. You have total control. You are God when you are working in Photoshop. You can tell it whatever to do. So anyway, so instead of having it bounce back, I want it to bounce on the floor. So we just go back. We're always going to screen through our timeline like that. So it's looking pretty good. It's falling down. It hits the ground, but nothing happens to it, and it just rolls off to the side. Okay, that's a pretty good shell to work with, because we have, you know, more or less what it's looking like. So here, this is where we start adding, you know, deformations and, you know, changes and blurs and whatever you want with it. So here, when it hits the ground, what I want it to do, I want it to, what was it again? Squash and stretch. There you go. So having said that, this is the point where it actually enters contact with the ground. I want to add maybe another 5 keyframes. And I'm going to right click, insert keyframe. And then from here, all I have to do is, from the moment it hit the ground to the deformation I want it, I'm going to have it stretch and squash. And literally all you have to do is just squash it. Like, it's that simple. So instead of having it float like that, what you want to do, you want it to keep it on the ground. Obviously, because that's how it happens. So here, if you notice, we have a little bit of movement. We actually don't want that, this little slide. So what we do is we just click on our object, use rulers, really good. We use it for everything else, Photoshop, Illustrator. It's no different than Flash. So here we just align with it, and then we get our squished circle, and you just move it right there to it. So you keep in everything within points of reference. So now if you go back and we look at it real quick, this is how it's looking so far. So it hits the ground, it deforms, and moves off to the side. Okay, we're not quite there yet.
You couldn't,
Mr. Zamir, please.
on the second frame, you couldn't squash it there?
Well, if we had it squashed here, what was gonna happen? I'll actually show you right now. It's gonna have this deformation throughout the first part. As it falls down, it's gonna start deforming. We don't want that. So if you go back to your question, you see what happens. The ball's starting to fall and it's starting to squish. That's why I added that keyframe, and then another 5 frames after. That's when I actually had it squash.
You almost had him, man. You almost had him.
Okay, I'm again.
Alright, so anyways, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
My Oompa Loompa brother? So okay, so here we have it squashed. So when the ball, these are just little things that we got to keep in mind. You know, like in real life, what would happen? It would squish and it would bounce, and it would hit the floor again, and it would probably bounce another 2 times and then roll off. So for the sake of the class, and it's already 9:40, I'm just gonna
Flash, V2.
make this real simple. So here we would have it squash, and then you another 5 keyframes, let's say. Let's keep it consistent with what we're doing. You insert another keyframe, and then here you would have the ball 2 sides. And let's have it bounce. So you move it up, and now it's going to look like it's bouncing. So more or less. So that's where that's why I was saying you're gonna have to go back and actually feel the animation and move your keyframes around so you actually get the look and feel of a ball falling and bouncing and rolling off the screen or however you want it. So this is just pretty much a basic intro to Flash and all its tools, stage, and whatever you can do with it. So now Franco is gonna jump in, rescue me, and he's gonna go over, you know, all these basic tools and tips and tricks to do a resize for one of our banners. So you guys can have a feel. Please vote now for Flash 2.
Don't save. You want to say this? Okay.
You busted us so
Holy moly.
I was nervous, man. I was really nervous.
All right, so we're gonna start with a few examples of the banners that we do. Oh man, it plays here. All right. This has all the elements that David was talking about, tweens, things coming in and out, and these are the things we do week in and week out. Should I play them all at once? Flash player. Is that it?
Yeah.
And these are gonna loop, hopefully. Some of them. These are Yahoo banners, they don't loop. All right, let me go in and explain some of these elements and the things that go into these. So, like David said, this is the stage, and in the stage we have the action script, which we talked about was where the code is, and in this code, let's see. This is where we have the code for the looping, okay?
code looks so beautiful.
Yeah, Jess helped us out with that. This is the code we use because in CCS Mex, what happens is that they require that it loops 3 times only. So to be able to do that, we need all this beautiful code here. And as it says right here, comment means these things here. Anything that's grayed out means that it's not reading it. So in this case, the animation would play throughout and then stop at the end because everything else is grayed out. If I move this and I put it at the top, then this section here is now visible. So then it goes, plays two times, and then on a 3rd time it stops. And so we have this because in some banners, it can only play once. Yahoo banners, I'll explain that later. But so this is the action layer. Let me close that. Then this is our border. This is just like a quick anatomy of a banner. This is our border. I don't know if you can see that right there. 1 pixel border, gray, standard. This is the tab. This tab, when you actually export, it plays the animation, and this tab comes in at the end, and you roll over it, and it comes out with specs or extra information right here. Little black box. Then we have the click tag, which is what makes this banner go to, whenever somebody clicks on it, it goes to the page that the publisher requires it to go to, or that Dell requires it to go to. In the banners that we work on, you can see right here, there's all kinds of different codes and thingies, TrueX, TMAP, TUNIV, and these things, if you look at the banner that we have, this one, like right here, it's got the name, right? This is in the placement chart, you'll get the name, you copy it in the file, and then you'll get the specific click tag that you need. This one says TMAP, which means that I'm usually working with 2 screens, so this is
Placement chart is where the interactive guys get the list of what ads are publishing that week.
okay, thank you. So in this case, I would choose this one here, and I would put it at the top. Remember, I told you about these little backslash asterisk, making everything gray. So in this case, just as an example, I chose to add a URL so it doesn't, because these things are sort of, they're all blank. So whenever they get released to the publication, they add whatever it is that they do to it, so then when people click on it, it works. But so if I added the one that actually goes on this one, which is this, it wouldn't go anywhere. It would just open up a blank page. So just for you guys, I did an example where if you click on it, it actually takes you to a Dell page. So there you go.
So you don't get to see what the publication adds after you release these banners?
No.
So if they screw up, there's no way to control?
I don't know about
Well,
that.
there is the QA. We
No,
check it.
but then they release
They
it.
No,
release
but
it, but the
But then the media also checks,
Yeah.
and if there is a problem, they
with
send
the
it
sign.
back.
Yeah.
No, but what she's
No,
saying is
no,
because
no.
we
Yeah.
put in whatever the click tag for the specific media is, and then their responsibility is
Right.
to
Place it.
place it and put in the right link and all that stuff.
It's all automated.
But sometimes you see that they,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
sometimes
The-
they, I mean, if you're working with the big ones, Univision, Yahoo, MSN, they're very professionals and they don't touch it. In some cases, you can see, I have to see the cases in Chile, I see the banner on the home page, like they completely screw up the font, or
Right.
so you have to call.
And then you call
I
it
just
and
really call them and ask what happened.
Okay.
The problem sometimes is that the ads run in IP specific zones. So like if I went into the Yahoo page for Mexico and looked it up, I would never see it unless I'm in Mexico.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to be able
To
to
check.
control that.
Yeah,
I've looked
okay.
for these banners all over.
The Brazil ones, you
Yeah.
can actually check.
The Brazil ones, yeah.
And also I noticed that my browser history, but the ads that show up on my browser sometimes aren't the same that show up on other people. It depends on what history you're doing. What sites you go.
Right, of course, yeah.
Okay, so that's the click tag, which is one of the most important things. When we do QA, QA means that you check for that it's the right quality assurance, thank you. You check for that it's the right click tag and you make sure it matches whatever it says here in the name for CCS Mex for Brazil. Each publication has a specific click tag, so you gotta look at the spec sheet, which I should have brought. I'll show you guys later an
That's another
example.
monster.
Yeah. And You check the size, you check that the frame rates are the correct ones, and you check that the animation is smooth, and a few other things. Okay, so now this is the MC is the movie clip. This holds the entire animation. So if you run through this, you'll see different tweens and things. Let me. It's right down there. This is the background, which is that white. You wouldn't be able to see it right now unless I change the color. But anyway, that's the background, which you can change. It's it's so hard to work on somebody else's computer because it's like all my palettes are all in different places.
Like I never keep it too far.
This one's actually got a gradient. Anyway, so then you play through, and you'll see that this comes in, and you can see the things that David had talked about, as in the keyframe. See how that one bounces a little bit, and then it flies back, and then disappears right there. This one comes in from up here, drops, zoom in, zoom out, etc. And then you have, so that's the message. We have 3 frames. On the 3rd frame, the Intel mention has to come in. So you got frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. And you see the Intel mention down here coming in. And then the final frame. Oh, one more. The client always asks for a big Última Semana, act now kind of thing. And then the last frame.
How many, what's the average of the frames you have on a?
What do you mean, like in between?
No, like actual motion animation. Like how many is it? Like 5 frames, 6 frames?
You mean like the ones I just counted,
Yeah.
now?
The ones that you have in purple?
The tweens.
You
Oh,
know?
the actual tweens, like how
Yeah.
much time we give for things. Oh, okay.
That all depends on the space, because right now we have, this one's 15 seconds, and the end, which is right here, needs to be around 11, maximum 12 seconds, because once it gets to the last frame, you need all this time to read all this stuff before it loops again. So then you need about 2 or 3 seconds to read this, and the same for all of these. I mean, if I play it, it's usually about 2 seconds in between each one. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and it depends how many frames the client asks for. If they ask for 1 or 2 frames, we can have everything longer, and you can have these things longer also. But that depends on how you want it to look.
Yeah, it's a couple of factors that you got to take into consideration. First is the frames per second for the client. Like Brazil, we're talking about 18 frames per second. CCS Max, we're talking 24. So off the bat, that already changes how
Yeah,
many
it's shorter.
how long your tweens are. You know, because if you have less time, you're gonna need a faster tween, so you're gonna have less space in between. If you have more time, you can have either more of these tweens, or the tweens can be longer. So it just really depends on what your client needs. So more or less, there's no like rule of thumb, but it's good to keep like round numbers in between, like like even numbers, like 4, 8, 10, things like that. But yeah, there's no rule, there's no like standard really.
We've gotten into a lot of cases where round 1, DTP 1, it's basically this, and this, and then final frame. And then the client asks for, we want the promotion to stand out, so they add this frame. So by doing that, we got to shorten everything, shorten the last frame. So it's usually a lot of moving things around to fit whatever the week is. So the last frame, you have the headline, price, call to action, legal, Dell logo, Intel logo, and sometimes things like this, where this thing pops out at the end. Extra, I think those are called tags. Okay, so how much time do we have left?
7 minutes.
Should we go into
Go
resizing?
on, yeah.
Okay, so once we have this ready, we send it off to the client. It goes through a bunch of rounds, usually 3, and then by the third round, usually on a Monday or a Tuesday, hopefully Monday, we start the resizing process. And if you look at the placement chart, you'll see that there's
There's horizontal ones, there's vertical ones, there's
Yeah.
small ones, there's.
Tons.
in this, just for an example, I picked this one, which is this is a bigger. Wait a minute. This one is a 425 by 600. This is one of the bigger ones we do. So in this case, you have to start by making your area, your ad size bigger, but also you can see that the image is bigger, because if you use the same elements that you have in your smaller size, then everything's gonna be. I mean, I guess you guys know about layout, so I don't really have to go into that. But
We should.
I should.
You hope.
The thing with Flash is that this element right here, which is anything that's an image, such as this or these logos, the logos usually stay the same, but this, if I stretch it out, if I make it bigger or smaller, and I play it, you'll, like when you see the actual animation, it'll show pixelated or blurry. So anytime you do a resize, see that? See how terrible that looks? And watch this. Even if I make it smaller, it'll still, like, because you would think that because of the resolution you'd be able to make it smaller, but for whatever reason in Flash, it dithers, or what is it you call it? Breaks
So
apart.
basically, where you drop it in is where you dropped it in. You can't adjust that.
You should use it at 100%. You can go down. See how that?
Why don't you start with a bigger size?
That's exactly what I'm going to.
Exactly. That's where he's going to right now.
Any resize that you do where the image has to be resized, you got to bring in a new image. So
So you got to go back to your original image, your PSD, and then resize it to what you need.
So what I have here
Resize
is,
it in Photoshop to what you need.
yeah,
Yeah. So sometimes in our assets folder we have like four different labs, four different sizes of
So
the
pretty
same
much always has
laptop.
to be at 100%.
yeah.
That's how that really preferably. Yeah.
Well, usually like the 300 by 250, which is this size, usually what we do is we keep it at 100% for the standard size, like the 728 by 90, which is the long one. It can stay at 100%. And the 160 by 600, which is the skyscraper, that one can also stay at. For this bigger one, you need it bigger. So what you do is, like, for example, you go in here. Wait, let me open the. Let's pretend that I hadn't done anything here yet. Let's pretend that this is not here, right? And this is like I started doing my layout, moving things around, and this is pretty much the space that I have to work with. So what you can do is either get an idea of the space that you have by just looking at this at 100%, or you can do a screen capture of the space, and then you take it into Photoshop. Huh? There's different ways to do screen captures. I'll go over that really fast. There's like a Shift Option Command 4, which actually takes a picture and saves it in your clipboard. So then when you just paste, wait a minute, you just paste and it's right there. So now I'm going to go into this image that I prepared. And this image is pretty much the size that I need it to be, but if it was bigger, you would resize it. And I can grab this, bring it over here, and see pretty much that that's the space I need. I can make it smaller or bigger. Then I get rid of this stuff. Crop it. You always want to crop as close as you can. Save for web.
And I gotta actually probably hit enter.
Oh, sorry. Save for web. And then right here, you can choose. I usually choose JPEG, but you can do whatever you prefer. And the size for the bigger banners, it's in the placement chart. I think we're gonna have to have another class.
We're gonna have to have another time. But keep going until they come in and stop us.
Okay. In the placement chart, you're gonna have for each different size. There's a specific weight to it. Usually the bigger ones are around 37, around 30, 37. For Brazil, that's a whole different story. It's like everything's like 20K. So since this one's a little bit bigger, I can go with 12, maybe a little. I can even do 80 here and have it at 19, and reduce the size in Flash itself. So save this. We'll call this one. What was that? 3400. I think.
I think the other day you mentioned that saving things with a white background makes for a smaller size and with a clear background.
Right.
I would have thought that the opposite is one. It's less information.
No, because it's transparent.
Yeah.
You gotta, it's gotta read the transparency and all that stuff.
So
Well,
what?
you're adding color by having it white, so that's more.
Like-
No, but no, it's reverse.
Let's reverse.
White is
It's a
Oh,
larger
it's
file if you
less
have
than
the background.
Oh,
clear background.
really?
Yeah.
I would have thought
Yeah. That's
there's
what
no
I'm-
information there, so
The color background weight more. Yeah. Because white isn't information and color is information, so it's everything.
Okay.
And this too. Watch what happens when I do without the screen. Without the screen, same one. Whoops. 80. It's 15 instead of 19. Okay.
Okay, now see how that computer, I know it's the latitude and I know it's really black. But do you guys do any kind of
Oh, but it's
the
a really
projection.
bad
It looks
projection.
Better. It looks better when you do
okay,
it.
alright.
Look,
But you know what I was gonna ask. Okay, alright. Do you guys do color correction to, I mean, I know everybody's
can.
skin is different, so it's to a certain extent.
we can if we need to, but the stuff that's in the DAM is color corrected.
So you pretty much use it.
We use the stuff that's in the DAM is good to go.
Okay.
So they say.
Mm.
Almost
Mhm.
always.
Okay.
I really haven't had to do any color correction.
Yeah. Hey, so how about if you have a background with like colors and something like that in the background, you save it as a PNG, right?
There's two ways. Yeah,
Two
you can
ways.
do that.
Or-
You can do it as a PNG, or you could save it as a JPEG with the same color background that you have in there.
No, but I mean if it has like lines and
Oh yeah, you would need to do a PNG. But there's two ways to do that also, or many ways probably. But you can do where, let's see, I guess you would take this off, and you can save as and save like this one's got the shade, the reflection still. So a GIF, you can do a GIF, right, with transparency, or a PNG. The way that I prefer to do this is you import directly into here, import to a library, then you select your image as a PSD, you import, and then you select the layer specifically. Like it has to be like if you want with the screen, you would have to flatten it in the PSD first.
And can I ask something? If when you're copying and pasting all that stuff, is it copying over all the animations and all that stuff as well, right? Or you have to do that separately?
What do you mean? I don't get it?
Like when you just pasted all that in the new file, like all the one from the small one, by just selecting all the graphics, it's not taking the animation, right? You have to select the panels as well, or no?
If you want to,
Go
You
ahead.
get what I'm saying?
if you want to bring in the animation, you're gonna have to go and select everything inside the timeline, not on your stage.
No, okay.
Because if you go on the stage, you're just selecting
Just
those
the
elements
objects.
in that specific keyframe.
Oh, okay. I guess.
But if you notice, they have the movie clip and they have animation within the movie clip. If they were on the main scene, they could
The
copy
movie
and
clip
paste.
will go.
Yeah,
They could
exactly.
copy and paste that movie clip, and that would take all the animation with it.
Or replace the image, no? You have the image of your computer and you can go to the library and replace it for another size, and that will replace it in the whole animation.
Oh, okay.
That's why, again, when I was talking about movie clips, that's why it's good to have all your objects or your elements as movie clips. Because all you have to do is you replace an image inside that movie clip once, it replaces everything throughout the entire
And it's-
animation.
And it's the same as in InDesign, where if you replace something here with the same name, it's gonna write over it and replace it with whatever you brought in. So, for example, let me open something else. I have samples here of ads that are different colors, right? So, for example, this ad has the call to action that's red. If I go here, this is in my library, this is the call to action movie clip. If I copy this and bring it over here and paste, it's gonna ask me to replace it. If I say yes, it's gonna change it to that one, see? And in some cases, if I go in here, what?
Sometimes. If it's not-
Sometimes it
if
does.
they're not positioned in the same spot.
Yeah, that's-
because one of them had a 250 stage, this one has a 425 by 600, so it just it has a different
No, but
reference point.
it has to do with this also. It's because this is the movie clip. This is the 0, 0 coordinate right here within the movie clip.
Yeah, exactly.
If the call to action is in a different place within the call to action movie clip, that's why it moved.
Okay.
That's something that's like because of the resizing that we do.
That's an advanced flash.
That's
I
for
know.
next
That's
class.
for next class. Advanced is probably class 3 or 4. But again, you guys gotta vote. Don't forget to
100
call.
call David.
Do you guys have any more questions? Let's just
Which
go
one
over
is
some
secret?
stuff now.
Keep going over stuff.
Because, I mean, like the stuff that I was going to go into later is resizing. That's going to take me longer.
All right, so then we reconvene 2 weeks from today.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Anything? Bye.
Just crack on it.
Good job.
By the end of next class, you'll be able to jump in and help out.
Exactly.
That's the whole goal, right?
Okay, now make sure you stop your recording.
Yeah, I wanted to clap.